Oh, that's right. Get my picture taken with John C. Fleming. He's a congressman from Louisiana's 4th District, and we are here today. He's a doctor, and I was just asking him off the air. Congressman John Fleming, welcome to the show first. You're in South Carolina now. Why did you decide, being a doctor, did you decide to become a congressman?
Well, years ago I had a colleague that had suggested that I go to Baton Rouge in our state house and to work on some health care issues, and I decided not to because I had young children at the time and I couldn't bear to leave them. But over time my kids grew up, they're now adults, and an opportunity came up, and we also foresaw health care reform coming our way in 2008. So I went ahead and ran for an open seat, won, and a bunch of other doctors have joined me as well. So healthcare is a center point of many of the issues in Washington. It's terribly broken because government has intruded itself in our healthcare system, and we need to have a rational way out of that so that we bring the free market back to healthcare and put the patient and the patient's doctor back in control. So that's been my primary reason, but of course we've gotten into many other issues as well that are so important when it comes to freedom and the first principles of our founding.
Well, how do you like being a congressman? Just out of, as comparison to being a doctor, how do you like being a congressman?
Well, I see it as a calling.
Okay.
There's some, in terms of lifestyle, there's some advantages and there's some disadvantages. You meet a lot of very interesting people, that's an advantage, but you're constantly on the road, you're constantly busy. Leisure time is almost non-existent. So I see it.
Come on, you guys get a lot of breaks. That's what they're always talking about,
I
how many
know.
breaks you get.
Well, it's interesting. They say, well, okay, they're on vacation for a week. Well, the truth is we return to our districts, and we work from 7 in the morning until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And so it's hardly a vacation or a break. But again, I'm not complaining or whining. Nobody made me do this. But
Right.
just like being a doctor, I see it as a calling. And so as long as the good Lord has given me some abilities and certainly a goal in life to make this a better place for those who follow behind me, a mission, if you will, then I'm happy to respond to that calling.
Sure. Now, just what is your interest as far as immigration here? What is your interest? You're from Louisiana. Do y'all have a lot of problem with immigration?
We don't have a lot of direct problems, but the problem is with immigration overall is that we already have a huge burden on our safety net system. Food stamps, Section 8 housing, 80 different welfare programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these programs are going to be additionally burdened as we take in more people who come here without skills and ability to really rise up through upward mobility with education and skills. So we're happy to accept people here as immigrants when it's a legally controlled system. But when we have a situation where we have an open border, anybody can come over, and the taxpayers have to pay the bill. At some point, we're not able to take care of our own vulnerable citizens who may be elderly, who may be disabled, and I don't see that as a real advantage for American citizens. You see, I serve American citizens. Those are my constituents, not people from other countries.
Mm-hmm. So is there any hope of anything? Because, I mean, we've talked to a lot of people. I mean, I just had the Texas Border Volunteers who say there is just not enough help. I mean, this is a volunteer organization that the Border Patrol needs about 300 more people just to be able to cover this one area in Texas. And it doesn't seem to be the will in Congress to get something done. I mean, all of y'all were reelected for your positions, and yet we don't seem to see a lot of action. A lot of Republican people are just really upset that we haven't seen more.
Well, the problem, the holdup, why there's no legislation moving on this is because when you have a president that absolutely ignores existing laws and takes upon himself authority that's not provided in the Constitution, what is the point of giving him even more authority, putting out more laws that he's going to violate? It's actually the president himself and through his executive actions that have thrown cold water on any movement in Congress on immigration. So if the president really if he really wanted solutions to these problems, he would have worked with Congress. He's so poisoned the well by just going it his way and insisting that his way is the only way. That he's actually
and yet
disrupted.
saying that he can't, that he doesn't have the power to do it, but then he did it anyway.
He did it anyway. Yeah. I make the point that there was a professor of the Constitution who said 22 times that the president does not have the authority to do this unilaterally, and that professor was Barack Obama himself. So he actually goes against his own professorial advice. And so this sets a dangerous precedent for presidents of the future, both Democrat and Republican, who can just run roughshod over Congress and the American people.
But you have the power of the purse.
Well, the power of purse is not necessarily as powerful as you think, because
this is disappointing.
It is, because you see, for example, the Department of Homeland Security bill. The John Boehner, our leader, the Speaker of the House, said we were going to fight tooth and nail over that issue, his executive amnesty with that. And then when the time came, he said, well, we can't let government shut down. Well, which is it? You either have the power of the purse and you use it, and then you deal with the consequences, which is going to be a shutdown of part of the government, or you just keep your mouth shut and say, we're just never going to shut government down. We really have got to be honest and transparent about this. And even the conservative media jumps on us when we use the power of the purse, and so.
Hold on just one second. You're listening to WCRS right here in Greenwood. We're going to talk on. I just had to give that ID.
Yes.
So the conservative media jumps on.
Yeah. When we get close to anything that looks like a shutdown, the first criticism comes from Republicans and the conservative media. They say, well, Congress needs to act, and they need to do things that are important here, and they need to accomplish things, and they need to stop this president, but they better not shut the government down. Well, that's the only tool we have. So you take that tool away from us through your messaging, and then we have none, because our leadership and certainly our majority tends not to want to risk losing that majority by getting criticism through the media.
So, and I understand that, did you vote for John Boehner as Speaker of the House?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I did.
For the second time? Because
yes.
I know there was about 25 or something that didn't vote for him the
That's
second
correct.
time. How do you think John's doing, John Boehner?
We have our differences, mainly on tactics, not so much on policy. But I would say that our leadership has had some very good moments, particularly here lately. We passed the SGR reform bill that ends the automatic cuts to doctors and healthcare providers across the country. And also we passed an excellent budget that pluses up spending for the military. So I give our leadership kudos for that. And so, as I say, it's not a matter of measuring their quality or commenting on that. It's just that some tactics I agree with, some tactics I don't agree with. Perhaps if I were in leadership, I might be more like them. I don't know. But from where I stand, I certainly think we need to be forward-leaning and standing up to the president.
That's right. Well, as you move forward here, what do you see is going to be happening on immigration this year? Is there going to be something happening on immigration?
I do not believe there's going to be any movement of immigration, any type of bill, until this president ends his tenure in the White House.
His tenure or his reign?
Well, I think you've got it right there. It really has become a kingdom now because he takes upon himself that. And so I think that many Americans are counting the days down to where we can return America back to one that is a government of the people and by the people, and not by someone who calls upon himself all the power, to dictate to people not only immigration policies but also what they eat in the schools. the American people are tired of this, and they can't wait for a new president.
They're
and
tired, but are they going to stand up and do something about it?
That's a great question. It really is. And again, I remind people when they tell me, well, we should impeach this president, I say, well, look, you reelected him knowing who he was. And so don't call upon me to reverse an election. You need to do your job out there to talk with your friends and family about, do we want a president who takes upon himself power that's not given in the Constitution, or do we want to elect someone who will work and listen to the American people and live within the Constitution?
Absolutely. Well, listen, I know that you have another interview coming
Yes.
up. I certainly appreciate you taking a few minutes, though, and talking to us down there
Absolutely.
in South Carolina.
Fantastic. Beautiful state.
It is
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you said you talked to who? Miss U.S. South
Miss South Carolina USA yesterday came by to visit me, and in fact I lived in Charleston for a year when I was stationed there in the Navy. A beautiful city. One of my daughters was actually born in the Navy hospital there.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us
Great.
today.
Thanks again.
All right. Have a good one. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood. You know, we've been having a good time here. We've talked to so many, added another interview right here at the end. Congressman John Fleming. He is a doctor. He is a Republican from Louisiana's 4th District. So we are going to wrap for right now. That's right. I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to see what other trouble I can get into this morning. Then we'll be back this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So why don't you stay right with us right here on WCRS right here in Greenwood. Bye-bye, everybody.